I'm going to go over the top 10 Bronze Age books in my collection. I was tagged by Lunch Money Comics. Let's see what I got. Up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe, hit notifications, all that great stuff. We're closing on 4,800 subscribers. Going to be doing a big giveaway at 5K. Also, follow us on other social medias, on Instagram at Bronzeville_Comics, on Whatnot at Bronzeville_Comics. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and next Monday, October 30th, is going to be Bronze Age Horror Night. And if you're not yet signed on with Whatnot, you can use the link in the description of this video that gets you $10 off your first purchase. That purchase does not have to be with me. So give it a try. Check it out. Don't get carried away. It can be fun, but it can be dangerous. Also, in the description of this video is a link to my eBay store as well as my email. If you have an email, reach out to me with any questions. So Mike from Lunch Money Comics had tagged me in a video, and this was a very popular thing in YouTube maybe 2 years ago. Well, tag videos. I think it was started by Comic Collector Geek with the hashtag 70s covers. So I kind of went around and around of what books were going to be in my top 10. And I didn't want to do just the books with the highest value. I thought that was a little bit boring, but I decided to do books that meant something to me and the way that my collecting has evolved over the course of my lifetime, and especially recently. So I didn't have any slabbed comics until, I had two. Until about 2 years ago, not even. I probably got my first submission back. It would be early 2022, just over a year and a half ago. And I have a lot of slabs since then. So one of these books is not slabbed. The rest are. They're PC books until I get an upgrade. One, though, is like a placeholder. We'll talk about each of them. I don't have Incredible Hulk 181 in here, which is, or Marvel Spotlight 5 or Amazing Spider-Man 129, a lot of the big expensive ones. So it was sort of like what it meant to me. So number 10 on the list, we're going to go with X-Men number 94. I have it in a 4.5, off-white to white. This is the first in-title appearance of the new X-Men, second appearance of Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, and Thunderbird. And I was always a collector of team books as a kid, because I always felt you got more bang for your buck. You had a bunch of different characters rather than just one character. And so I always collected books like Justice League, Teen Titans, Avengers, X-Men. And I got into X-Men during the Byrne era, not so much in the Cockrum era. This is the first time that Chris Claremont wrote an X-Men script, and Len Wein also wrote the story, and Dave Cockrum did the art. Gil Kane and Cockrum did the cover. Kane was doing a lot of covers at this point in time. But the reason that this makes my list is because the X-Men were an iconic team for me. For those of us that grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, the X-Men were kind of a surprise at first, because this book had been all but canceled. It was in reprints for a few years, leading up through issue 93. I think it was 69 through 93 or something. Were all reprints, and then Giant Size X-Men 1 hit. I don't have that, but this is the first in title. And as a run collector, it was always kind of intriguing to me to try to. I started collecting in the 130s. My cousin had collected earlier than that, and I would read his books. We would always trade whenever we got together. Some comics, and he was more the Marvel guy, I was more the DC guy. But then I got into X-Men, and I really appreciated the family aspect of it. Obviously, when I got into it, it was more Byrne doing the art, succeeding Cockrum. but just iconic characters. Obviously, they've been able to support an animated series franchise and a movie franchise, so this is number 10 on my list. Number 9, and it is Marvel Spotlight 2 from 1972, the first appearance of Werewolf by Night, this great Neil Adams cover. This is a little bit of a diversion. Marvel had these picture frame covers, so Adams did kind of these multiple frame picture frames of Jack Russell turning into the Werewolf by Night. Not a book I had as a kid, but I've been, and this is 7.5 white pager, pretty nice copy of that. For many years, even before I started doing this whole YouTube thing, when I was just more of a casual collector, I did go to New York Comic Con, did go to shows before that, like Big Apple Con, but I wasn't as active at pursuing. I would buy stuff on eBay and what have you, and getting new books from my LCS, but I was pursuing DC 1972. And when I got back into collecting hardcore, I decided to get all the Marvel keys from 72. So this is one of the main ones because it's the 72. There were restrictions in the comics code that allowed Marvel and DC to a lesser extent, but Marvel really leaned heavily into their own takes really on the Universal Monsters characters, Frankenstein, the Living Mummy, etc., and their own creations like Ghost Rider. So Werewolf by Night comes in, and this great Neil Adams cover. I think Mike Plug did the interior art. Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, and Jeannie Thomas stories. Plug. Neil Adams, Tom Palmer did the cover. Can't go wrong with the Neil Adams cover, and that's not the only one on the list. So far we have one by Gil Kane and one by Neil Adams. We almost can kind of keep track as we go along. Up next, this is not a book that's going to be on many people's lists. It is DC 100-page Super Spectacular number 14. It's actually number DC 14, if you can see right there. That was the numbering system. It didn't start with DC 1, these 100-pagers, but it started with number 4. And one of the things that I love about these, this is a Nick Carty cover, and it's a wraparound cover. So these are all reprints, mostly from the Golden Age. There are a couple Silver Age stories. But I saw this in a 9.4. I have a good solid mid-grade copy in my PC, but when I saw this in 9.4, I got it for like $110. This is a square-bound 100-pager. It's a thick slab. Tough. I mean, look, the black at the bottom. Tough to get in this grade. That's just a really pretty book. But this has personal significance to me. I did love the 100-pagers. Now, one of the interesting things, these were only 50 cents at the time. This is 1973. February of 1973. So the 100-pager started in 71 and continued in 73. Shortly after this, the numbering would be commingled, where you would get the DC whatever number, and it would be a Superman or Flash or whatever Superboy title, and also get the next number in that series. And it would just be like an extra issue for that month. Actually, that happened before this. I don't know why this isn't a Batman issue. But regardless, this has personal significance because I have a specific memory of being homesick from school when I was in first grade. And my dad came home from work, and he had like a brown paper bag, one of those flat brown paper bags, and he bought some comic books for me. And this was one of them. So I still have that specific memory of being in my kitchen at like, what would I have been? Like 6 years old, and Dad bringing home this comic for me. There were other comics in the bag, but I don't recall what they were. But he knew I liked Batman because of the TV show. And then I get introduced to Wildcat there, and you have, Adam and Dollman on top of the horse. They were in different stories. Blackhawk, Wonder Woman. And the great thing about these books is it really introduced me to DC history, and also because you have a Dollman and a Blackhawk story, quality comics history. Later on, Fawcett stories were also reprinted in these. And on the interior front and back covers, they would call it the Super Specs, and they would have like glasses, like spectacles. And they would have the backgrounds of the heroes featured in these stories, like their origins. I think it had like their first appearances and that sort of thing. So as a kid, it gave me so much information about DC Comics. and quality that I loved and really got me interested in the gold and silver age of comics at a very early age. Up next is, this is another Marvel 72 key, and it is Tomb of Dracula #1 in a 9.4. It is creamed off white pages, but it's a 9.4. It's just a gorgeous book. And this is, of course, the first appearance of Dracula. We talked about Marvel leaning into the Universal monsters, and Dracula was one of them. This book outlasted all the other ones. You have this great Neil Adams cover. Again, this picture frame cover, which was kind of how all the Marvel books were. The covers were being drawn in 1972. So this is the second Neil Adams cover on the list. And again, it's just an iconic book. When I was growing up collecting, the horror titles are always something a little bit different than what I collected. And I did occasionally pick one of those up. But as I got older, more intrigued with these and these these Marvel 72 keys, I have all the keys basically from 1972. So this is a really cool book to have. Tomb of Dracula #1. And in such a beautiful grade. Another issue #1, which is a quasi first appearance. We're going back to DC, 1972, and it is Swamp Thing #1. It is a 7.0 white pages. It is the first appearance of the Alec Holland version of the Swamp Thing. I love the purple at the top of the cover. I don't know why. And there's a really soft spot for me for this 20-cent, big 20-cent in the circle. That's like, I started collecting comics in late 72, and so all the DC comics had this big 20 cents in the circle. But Swamp Thing, I didn't collect much during the original run, but for some reason, when the Saga of the Swamp Thing came out, what was that, 1980-ish? Came out the same month as Fury of Firestorm, and DC really promoted those two heavy. And I guess I had some extra spending money, so I threw those on my pull list, and I collected the Swamp Thing series all the way through, including the Alan Moore issues. Then you go back and discover the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson stuff. This is a Bernie Wrightson cover, of course. They had created the character in House of Secrets #92 from 1971. I do not have a copy of that yet. It is obviously high on my want list. And we are getting a Swamp Thing movie, right? We've already had two of them. One was pretty decent. One was horrendous. The one with Adrienne Barbeau, the original one, was good, directed by Wes Craven. The second one with Heather Locklear was a pile of swamp poop. It was just terrible. And I've seen it in the theaters twice. Once was as a Riff Tracks version, which was hilarious because, I mean, the movie's terrible. There were also a couple of TV series. One was kind of more based on that. It wasn't as bad as the movie, but it did have like the juvenile elements of like the neighborhood kids that were just annoying. And also there was that recent series on it was DC Universe, it was called, when they were trying to launch their own DC streaming service, which ended up getting gobbled up by HBO Max. But Swamp Thing, an iconic character from the early 70s. Really glad to have that issue #1. Talk about issues #1s. This is not the first appearance. But again, I'm a run collector, and this helped me finish the run. It's one of the few books that I actually bought graded. I bought it when I got back into the height of comic boom, yada, yada, yada. I've actually looked at this and think there might be room for improvement, but there is. It's not quite white. But it is a copy of Defenders #1 in a 9.2 white pages. First issue of Defenders, I think it ran 157 issues. And this was one of the books, when I was a kid, I talk about teen books. I bought Avengers and I bought Defenders. Defenders, I also thought, was easier to complete the run because it began later. So when I was a kid going to comic shows and what have you, I started buying Defenders issues. And there were some great Steve Gerber stories, and then R.I.P. Keith Giffen. Keith Giffen was doing the artwork. One of his first, assignments was to do Defenders. Like I think in the 30-ish issues with Klaus Janson inks. Just gorgeous stuff. Really loved that. And so as a run collector, unfortunately, I kind of go in the wrong direction. I collect down, so I get the more expensive issues at the end. So this was one of the last issues that I needed. And fortunately, when I bought some collections that had Defenders in it, I had to go through back my own collection to see which books I had in the highest grade. And I had some really high grade books. I had almost all the issues from 20 up and a bunch earlier than that. And I was buying them when they were more or less as back issues still new. Still, maybe a few years old. So they have, they've been sitting in my PC ever since, so they haven't bounced around. So I do also have all 3 issues of Marvel Feature that lead up to the Defenders and the Submariner issue that's kind of a prototype. So I got the whole run. I think the last issue I needed was 10. They completed the run, and I'm a run collector. I'm going to do a video about that soon because somebody was asking why I collect runs. I have them all. Why not? That's what we do as collectors. We want everything. So that's number 5. Number 4, another 1972 book. And if you see the opening of my video, you'll see a lot of these. This is Green Lantern number 87 in 8.5 off-white to white pages. First appearance of John Stewart as Green Lantern. And, this is actually... I was like, originally like, is it a 71 book or 72? Because the cover date says January, which is 1972, but the indicia says December 71, January 72. I'm like, I'm going to collect these. This is a great book. I have several copies of this. I have one that's coming back this week. I have another high-grade one that I have to send out. I have another 8.5. So we are getting John Stewart supposedly in a Lanterns TV project in the James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DCU. So they actually, I do also have a reader copy. The stories in this are really good. These Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams stories from this Green Lantern, Green Arrow era. It only lasted, Green Arrow was just canceled, or Green Lantern, I'm sorry, was just canceled a few issues after this. I think it made it to 90. I think 88 was a reprint, 89 maybe been the last issue, or 90. Not sure off the top of my head. But this is one of the... I think I bought this as a slab during the comic boom. I got it, I thought, for a great price. And actually, the price has held up pretty well. So we'll see when they do some casting and announcement of this, where the book goes. But I think that's what our 3rd Neil Adams cover on the list. So that is really a nice book to have. And there's also a secondary Green Arrow story. I don't think that I don't think there are any reprints in this. Oh, maybe there are. Classic Earth's First Green Lantern. I think there is maybe a Silver Age appearance. There's a there's the Green Lantern and Green Arrow, I think, are on their own and each have their own story in here. And this, again, you see Green Arrow in the trade dress, but it is still officially titled just Green Lantern. Both stories by O'Neil and Adams are both terrific stories. So, yeah, see if you can find a copy or read of this. I don't know if they've done a facsimile of this. They certainly should, because it is an iconic book. And one of the more expensive DC keys from the 70s. Staying with that, another first appearance from the 1970s. Oh, just as an aside, I did get John Stewart's second appearance as a kid in Justice League 110 and was kind of intrigued as to who is this other Green Lantern. And then you didn't see him again for years after that. So finally got that book. It was nice. So this is a book that I do have in my PC that I bought when it first came out. And I was really excited about this comic. And not for the reason that it's a key now. It's All-Star Comics 58, the first appearance of Power Girl. I have it in a 6.0 off-white to white pages. I do have a couple of other copies. Again, I said one on my PC. I'm really not sure what that is, because I would have been, 9 years old when this book came out. So I was 9. I wasn't really interested in Power Girl the way other folks might be. I was interested in this as it was the reboot of the Justice Society of America in All-Star Comics. And I was a little put off at first because they had the Super Squad featuring the Justice Society of America. Like, they get really small writing there. But this cover is by Mike Grell. A lot of times this isn't credited to Grell, or Grell isn't name mentioned when they talk about this key. But The Super Squad were these new, younger heroes that joined the Justice Society. Power Girl, who was brand new, again, her first appearance. Robin, who is now grown up. This would have been 36 years after his introduction, so he would have been, I guess, in his early 40s if time unraveled on Earth 2 the way it does on Earth Prime. But he was younger. And Star Spangled Kid, who premiered the same year as Robin but was lost in time. So he's still a kid, and he got the gravity rod from Starman, who was essentially retired at this point in time. Also, I loved always having like kind of the roll call up at the top. You get those with those team books from DC. And it ran for up to issue 74, and then the Justice Society went to Adventure Comics. But I was always an Earth 2 Justice Society fan, loved the annual crossovers. So as a 9-year-old kid, I was really excited they were getting their own book, picked up every issue, loved it. So that, even more so than the first appearance of Power Girl. I did like Power Girl because she's a tough character, kind of an interesting origin, being a Kryptonian. It took, an extra 38 years to get to Earth. And she had a little run and showcase that I enjoyed. And she was always one of the main featured characters in this run. So this art, was it Wally Wood did this one? No, Rick Estrada and Wally Wood. Yes. So a nice kind of reboot of All-Star Comics with the Justice Society of America. That's number 3. Number 2. Now, this isn't the copy. I can't find my best copy of this. So I do have a PGX copy of Batman 251. This classic Neil Adams cover. This is the 4th Neil Adams cover. 2 for DC, 2 for Marvel, in case you're counting at home. This is probably my favorite Batman cover. And this is from 1973. This is sort of the reintroduction of the Joker. The Joker hadn't been used. I don't think he had been used since Justice League of America 77, when he was in cahoots with the Royal Flush Gang and got snapper cards to betray the Justice League. So one of the Joker's good deeds was getting rid of Snapper Carr in the Justice League. But this is a classic cover, and it's also a classic story. It is a story by Denny O'Neil, art by Neil Adams on the inside, and I picked up a raw copy of this a couple of years ago, and then since had it graded, and I read it, and I remember reading this book as a kid. Again, this came out in 1973, September of 73, so it would have been before September. So I would have been 6 years old. And the only Joker I knew was Cesar Romero, really. So there was a different take on the Joker. And I think even as a 6-year-old kid, the depth of Adams' artwork, the composition, struck me as something unique and different. And when I reread this book, when I got another copy, because every once in a while when I was a kid, my mother would kind of purge my collection just to get rid of some of the comics. There were too many. They didn't fit in the box in the closet. And I when I was a teenager, I was like wondering, where did these books go? I blamed my cousin for taking them and borrowing them and never getting back. But it wasn't his fault. Mom had thrown them out, and I had to rebuy them. This I didn't rebuy until I was in my 50s. But I started reading it, and I remembered the story. It was so indelible on me as a kid. So I do have a 6.0 in my PC, but I couldn't find it when I was looking for my slabs, which is a little bit worrisome, but it's there somewhere. I do have to organize my slabs again. I got another upwards of 50 slabs coming in this week, so I might wait till after I get those to do some reorganization. So anyway, that's number 2 on the list, classic cover by Neil Adams. What's number 1 on the list, you might ask? I think a really personal. This is a personal book. And it says something about my comic collecting journey. And if you haven't gotten a hint, it is Justice League of America 102. This is from October of 1972. And this wasn't the first comic book I ever got, but this was the first issue of Justice League of America. And I think as a comic collector, it does have more importance to me in a way, even than the first comic that I bought. You have this classic cover. I saw this T-shirt at New York Comic Con 2 years ago. I'm like, wasn't the right size. Eventually, I had to have it, right? And so I remember just devouring this book. I've had several copies as a kid. I had one. It fell apart. I got another one at Comic-Con, and I read that even like I was a teenager. It was funny. I don't have a slabbed copy of this. I would love to get a high grade one. They're only recently only recently was a 9.8 added to the census for this book. And you can see that black border. This is obviously not a 9.8. But it was funny because I picked this up, and you might have seen it in a previous video. And let me get some focus here. There we go. I picked this up at the Comic Crawl from Brickhouse Comics, and I was right next to Mike from Lunch Money Comics, who had tagged me in the video, and we were talking about, oh yeah, I'll get to it, and then I see, well, now I don't have to try to dig out one of my copies of this, I'll just buy another one. So, this classic cover, all these characters, I didn't know a lot of them, like, who's that guy? Who's that guy? I didn't know these. I knew Batman and Wonder Woman, Aquaman from the cartoon, but I had never picked up, I knew Superman, first issue Justice League of America. I think I had some Batmans and Brave and the Bolds. So, it's the third of a three-parter. The 100th anniversary issue started with one of these JLA, JSA crossovers, and they were going back in time to find the Seven Soldiers of Victory. So, the first, this is written by Len Wein, and of course it's a Justice League from this era. It's penciled by Dick Dillon. So, first splash page shows you Seven Soldiers of Victory. This is what sets me on my comic collecting journey. This book is why I have the complete run of Leading Comics, all 14 issues with the Seven Soldiers of Victory from the Golden Age. And right now, kind of one of my next steps in collecting is getting the 5 first appearances of these characters. Because Stripesy and Star Spangled Kid premiered together, as did Green Arrow and Speedy. And kind of the way that they used to do it for many years in all the JLA adventures written by Gardner Fox, and even to a lesser degree with JSA, they split up into teams, right? So you have Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Johnny Thunder, and they are in pre-Columbian America, and they are searching for Vigilante. Oddly, despite the fact that, like, no Europeans have come to the Americas yet, the Native American chief speaks English. So that was convenient. So then the second part is, I'm not worried about the condition of this book. This is definitely a reader. I've actually read this a few times since I picked it up a few weeks ago. Aquaman, Wildcat, and Green Lantern go to caveman times. They have to fight these Cro-Magnons. There's a yellow dust in the atmosphere, which robs Green Lantern of his powers. And Star Spangled Kid's in there. And he has a cold, so he's hiding so that he doesn't, inadvertently affect history by killing a Cro-Magnon with his cold. And then the third story in here, there had already been 4 other team-ups to get the other 7 Soldiers of Victory, were Flash, Zatanna, and the Red Tornado, finding Speedy, who is a centaur on a Circe's island in the Mediterranean. So there's Circe, and first appearance in the modern age. I guess it's the Earth 2 Circe. And so then they gather and they fold out to the mists of time, and I get this great splash page with all of these characters. And this came out in, 72? I hadn't had my birthday yet, probably. I'm 5 years old, almost 6. I'm an emerging reader at this point. And who are all these characters? And I would draw them. I would ask my dad to draw them. I try to find, the whole costume as I got more issues. And just kind of intrigued with all of these characters, especially the JSA characters and the 7 Soldiers of Victory. And it turns out to defeat the Nebula Man, they have to send this, what do they call it? This weapon, the Nebula Rod, into space. And they argue over who should deliver it so that, it'll kill whoever it does. Despite the fact, they may be invulnerable. Superman's vulnerable to magic, and Green Lantern's to either wood or yellow. So Red Tornado just says, I'll take it. Let me do it. And ba-boom. Qua-ra-ra-room. And he's dead. And it turns out the original Nebula Rod had been used before the Seven Soldiers were tossed into time by Crimson Avenger's sidekick Wing, who DC just brought back and then killed again because he had to go back in time. And they're dead. And we have this issue, this advertisement for the first issue of Commandy. But how does this set me on my comic collecting journey? Obviously, I'm interested in Earth 2, the Justice Society, the Golden Age heroes, the Seven Soldiers of Victory. But more to the point, and I pointed this out when I first got the book, DC did this time, right? In this pink banner at the bottom of the panel. Next issue on sale on or about October 10th, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this would have been on sale in either August or September. Before my birthday. So, yeah, I was 5. So, by the time October rolls around, I'm 6. 6-year-old me is like, Mom, it's October 10th. The new issue of Justice League is coming out. We have to get it. And I think we got it at Pathmark. Usually I end up getting my comics at this candy store that my dad would go to get the daily news after church on Sundays. And we'd pick up baseball cards and comic books, candy. And But I remember, Mom, it's October 10th. The next issue of Justice League is out. So, and then I noticed the next issue had a number 103 by it. And that's the one where Phantom Stranger joins. And I didn't miss an issue since. The last 51 years. I didn't miss 2 issues. I think it was 198 and 202. I have no idea why. But when I was like organizing my collection about 6 years ago, I'm like, wait, I don't have 2 issues of Justice League? But I don't know why I missed them. Was I at college or something? I don't remember. It was strange. And I look back at my original records and they weren't there. I don't know why I didn't get them. They would have been on any pull list that I would have had. I mean, I collected them by going looking for it every month. But I had other books that month. So this starts the journey of over 50 years of collecting comic books, new comics every single month. And it all starts with Justice League of America number 102. It informs what I was interested in and, you know, kind of how my collection has developed over the years. So it's, I think, kind of a unique book to have in the number 1 spot. It is not a sought-after book. It is not, you know, a hot key. It is, I mean, the best key significance you can give to it. It's like the first full modern rendition of Star Spangled Kid. You know, and you know, his first full appearance since the Golden Age. If I take a look at Go Collect, a 9.6 sold in 2017 for $203. You don't see them too often. Most recent sale on A5 for $100 in 2022. So it's not a book that changes hands. Again, there's one 9.8 on the census. And every once in a while, I'll take a look on eBay and see if there's one there. So I may want to save up. I think it would make sense. Like, I've gotten some original art from that book. And, you know, I probably will at some point save up my pennies. I don't know how much I'd have to spend to get the 9.8. I think for my collection, it would be worth it to get the 9.8. But I don't know who has it. There's only one. And we hasn't been publicly sold. And I think it only dropped on the census, I'm going to say within the last year. Right? So that is the top 10 books in my collection. Thanks to Mike from Lunch Money Comics. I guess I'm supposed to tag some folks to continue this going. So this is a tag video. I was tagged by Mike from Lunch Money Comics. I'm going to tag Joe with 360 Comics, Joe with Anachronic Comics, and James with Mint Hunter Comics. If you feel like doing a video, go for it. What are the top 10 Bronze Age comics in your collection? You just saw mine. Again, it wasn't based on value. It was based on, you know, kind of how I feel about the books. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like more of this content, please like, comment, subscribe. Leave a comment below about what your favorite 1970s Bronze Age comic book is. So thanks for stopping by. You can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.